Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live right here from Lusk Landing. We made it home. Been traveling quite a bit lately, and I'm just glad to have a voice. Last week I had some kind of a throat infection or something. I mean, it's like, you know, when you kiss grandkids, they're like little Petri dishes. You get stuff. Anyway, glad you're here. Let's join in. Let's have a little fun. I thought, hello, Jim Allen. Hey, I saw your email a while ago. Yep. My Hall of Fame induction ceremony is this Friday, and I'm pretty fired up about it. It's going to be a little, I'm not going to say nerve-wracking. It won't be nerve-wracking. It'll be a lot of fun, actually. I'll be in the room with a bunch of people that I care about, and that I guess care about me because you're going to show up. So it'll be fun. Just got to do a really fun little whirlwind trip around New England with our good friends Bucky and Mary Lanehart from up around. They live out in the country, just kind of southeast of Syracuse in upstate New York. Hello, Doug Cusick. Good to see you. Well, anyway, we got to go. We didn't make any plans. We just went. You know, we drove through Vermont, New Hampshire, stopped at Portsmouth and did some tourist stuff there. Went to Portland, Maine, and went out on a boat looking at the lighthouses. Hello, Danny Mac. Yep, I'm glad you're there, brother. And got to look at lighthouses and smell the smells of the ocean and eat lobster and torment a waitress. Hello, Kevin Matney. Good to see you, buddy. Y'all bring it on. Let's talk. So a few weeks ago, Leanne posted why I wasn't going to broadcast. I don't remember what it was, but it was something legit, I'm sure. So she said, what were some of the topics you wanted to hear about? So I wrote them down right here on the back of an envelope. A legit trash mail, junk mail envelope. So I'm going to start with those until you guys start pitching some questions. Scott Schillig. Now, I know he knows this show's going on. I'm not sure if he's watching yet because I can't tell. Looks like we got 6 viewers and 4 comments, and I don't know who else is on here. I'm going to go as long as my voice will let me. I'm still not at 100%. I feel fine. It's just a scratchy voice, which I don't know what to do about that, other than a little cough syrup. Yep, a little cough syrup. So, Scott Shilly, what's the importance of cover in largemouth bass and bluegill ponds in the north? What depth should they be placed in? Since 2 to 3 months of our surface water is 32 degrees to 40 degrees. Well, if it's 32 degrees, it's ice, Scott. Oh, wait, you knew that. Oh, hey, I didn't forget about that. Danny Mac, good. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like. Share this video to your timeline. You're going to be eligible for a drawing, which we'll do whenever I get to it, for a new hat or something cool. Kevin renewed his Pond Boss for 2 more years. That's excellent. Doug Cusick got it. Jim Allen, we got reports of grass carp eating acorns that folks toss to them. Ever hear of that before? No, I don't know of anybody that ever would think to throw acorns at a grass carp. I don't know, it kind of makes sense. It's vegetables. I guess if they're used to eating fish food, they could probably get accustomed to acorns. I don't know. So anyway, Scott says, what's the importance of cover in ponds in the north? What depths? I think cover in northern ponds needs to be in water anywhere from 5 to 12 feet deep. Yep, no weeds left. Guess they're hungry. Well, I would eat Wheaties if I was hungry. Scott and Leah Groons, date night. You guys are hanging out on the couch watching the Pond Boss up there near Tulsa, Oklahoma. Glad y'all are there. Hey, let's have a little fun. So, what's the importance of cover in largemouth bass and bluegill ponds? What depths? I'm going to say 5 feet deep to 12 feet deep. Now, one thing about northern ponds, which I don't manage a lot of them anymore. I managed some northern ponds back in 2004 to like 2010. And folks in the north are way, way more interested in ice fishing. Here in Texas, if you see ice, it's in a glass of tea or another beverage. So we don't see that. But they're working on ice fishing. On the dock fishing and listening. I love that. I mean, you got a cool night to do that. That's good. So I think it's just as important for northern ponds to have some kind of structure or cover. The difference between structure and cover is structure is permanent, cover not necessarily so. So cover may be aquatic plants. It may be something that adjusts with the season. Structure is more like logs or cuts, creek banks, flats, plateaus, things like that under the water. Kevin's got a windmill to keep his pond open. Hello, Joel from Clinton, Louisiana. We made some crawfish cornbread over the weekend. It was really good. So, when you're managing a northern pond, for you folks in the north, if John Funk shows up, you're really wanting to provide habitat in depths where you're going to be fishing under the ice. That's pretty important. Because if I'm managing northern ponds, I want to manage them through the summer more for ice fishing. Because that's a deal there. Hello, Chuck Brinkman. There's Elena. No volleyball tonight. That's it. Well, you know what? Elena is one of my favorite people. Elena and her sister love to fish at their pond just out there west of St. Louis, Missouri. They're being raised right. And hey, mind your parents, kid, which I know you do. Your mom and dad, they're worth being obedient to. So Jim Allen, structure is 5 to 12 the range for our pallet structures. Yes. If you're going to use pallets, put them in water 5 to 12 feet deep. Be sure and anchor them until they're waterlogged. Doug Cusick, water temperature is starting to drop in Kansas. Yesterday's temperature check was about 71 degrees and 49 to 50 inches. Low still. We haven't had rain since September 22. So you're 4 feet low. Well, Dave Davidson wanted to talk about rain dances, Doug. That was what he wrote down a couple of weeks ago when Leanne asked for topics. So I do a rain dance, and if you're not good at it, find somebody. Steve Alexander, how to manage harvest after introducing new genetics. So Mark Hicks, I'll get to that in a minute. Mark Hicks said, fall and winter prep for fish in our ponds. Harvest, feed. Yeah, that's a great time because what happens this time of year is when the temperature begins to drop, the fish instinctively know that they've got to feed. They need to eat. If you've got underperforming fish, right now is a good time to harvest some and begin to take some of those underperforming fish out. So the food that's available can go to the fish that are overachievers because they really need to gain a bunch of weight. And in the weight they gain, they need to store some fat because that's going to be their energy for the winter. If they go into the winter without fat build up, they're going to metabolize their flesh. You don't want them to do that because then they have to make that back up. If they metabolize fat, that's fine. So this time of year, harvest the underachievers, weigh and measure, check the standards, look at your weight of fish, and those that are underperforming, that are underweight, skinny, thin, whatever, start taking some of those out selectively. If they're average or above average, think about leaving them in there. And this is also a good time to add some additional forage if you have the budget for it. And it also kind of depends on how important the fish are compared to this adult beverage I'm drinking. Woodford, $54 a bottle. $54 would buy 5 pounds of golden shiners. So, let me see here. I'll try to keep your questions going. Kevin, I'm about 28 inches low here in Erie, Michigan. Yeah, well, you know what? There's areas where there's droughts and areas where there's not. And if you're not in a drought, you will be. I don't care where you are. If you're not in a drought, you will be. You need to plan for it. And the way you plan for it is to pay close attention to your water chemistry. Be sure your fish have what they need. Matter of fact, Dave Beasley wrote a really good article coming up in the November-December issue of Pond Boss about raising trophy fish and how the value of monitoring their growth rates, monitoring your water quality, aeration is good. If you've got that, if you got an aeration system, have it going. And I'm going to attack that here in just a minute. Let's see here. David Schneiderman, small 1/3 acre pond is dried up. What to do while it is dried up? Ideas for a reset. Red ear pond, forage fish pond. It was a bluegill pond before it evaporated. 5 to 7 feet deep in the middle, 3-foot shelf around the perimeter. Man, that's a perfect setup for bluegills, especially if you need more forage fish. And it would not be a bad idea to add some red ear to it. Look at the red ear as a benefit. Look at them as an insurance policy. Look at them as value added. But bluegill, David Schneiderman's pond is in southern Oklahoma. He's not far from Medill, Oklahoma. I've been there. I know where it is. So I would look at that because and David also has a bigger pond. He's got one 3 or 4 acres. That pond is going to need food at some point. So if you can do the food thing, grow some bait fish, you can help your big lake with that small pond. Now, what to do with it while it's dried up? Well, you've got a tractor. Now, you got to be real careful because when a pond goes dry like that, that doesn't mean it's dry. That means around the edges, you could probably get in there and drag with a bucket or, a box blade. You could drag some of that stuff out and go spread it out, upstream in the grass and till it in, and then turn it into something that will grow grass or something. But when you reset it, be sure you've got a little bit of gravel on those shelves, on those 3-foot shelves around there. Hello, Michael Eric. Hello, Todd Austin. Good to see you. Let me see here. Guess I need a little bit more Woodford here. Bear with me a minute. A little mouse doesn't work sometimes. Okay, come on. Holy cow, now what? Sometimes I'm incompetent. But I'm going in the Hall of Fame. Okay, let's see here. Doug Cusick, my pond leaks. It's part of the reason, along with severe drought the last 2 years in South Central Canada's Cheney Reservoir, our water source for Wichita is 8 feet low. We're on water restrictions. Man, I get that. So, I've talked to Mike Otto. I've looked at a lot of ponds that leak. I truly have. And Otto has got one of the best responses to that. All ponds leak. Now, what you got to figure out is that leakage significant? Does it matter? Well, the way you do that is measure how much water is leaving if it's leaking. Because even this time of year, as the water temperature begins to mitigate, it's not unusual to lose 1/4 inch of water a day. Back when it was hot, you could lose 1/2 inch a day. And I've seen areas of the planet, like West Texas in the high plains, where they claim water can go down 1 inch a day. I don't know if I believe that. I'm not sure if that's physically possible, but I have documented where ponds can lose 1/2 inch a day just to evaporation. So if you're losing more than that, and like right now, if you're losing more than 1/4 inch, then they may be leaking. Then you kind of got to decide, how much difference does it make? Okay, let me see here. Here's Josh Milsky from Nebraska living in Colorado. Jared Reynolds, my good buddy from the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. Quick question, are pond bass much less picky eaters than lake bass? No, they're not. They just feed differently. All bass will eat whatever fits in their mouth that's swimming by. So pond bass get conditioned quite a bit different than lake bass. A pond bass will eat a little snake, which a lake bass will too, but ponds are more confined. So the answer to that is pond bass are not more picky. All it's got to do is be moving and fit in their mouth, and they're going to eat it. Jeremy Day, welcome back. We did Portland and Kennebunkport. We drove by the Kennebunkport exit. We didn't do that. Bangor and Bar Harbor. We didn't make it up that far. Bluegill and red are starting to get featured. Excellent. That's great. Josh, congrats. Hey, thanks, buddy. I'm so pumped up about that. The induction ceremony's Friday. And I found out about it back in February, I think. And I started thinking about 2 or 3 days after that, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to give a speech, which I've given hundreds of speeches, literally. But I'm thinking, okay, this isn't going to be talking about ponds and lakes and doing this. I'm going to be standing in front of 150 people who have been invited that wanted to come, and I need to say something significant. I still don't know what I'm going to say, and it's day after tomorrow. No, 2 days after tomorrow, Friday. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go back to Steve Alexander's question. How to manage a harvest after introducing new genetics. Here's what he means. Practice the speech here? Josh? Okay, I'll practice. All right, here's what I know. I'm going to stand up in front of the crowd, and I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say, and I might not say this. I don't know what I'm going to say. Dude, help me out here. Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to celebrate me. This room is full of people. Let me tell you, while I'm standing in the spotlight, I'm looking out in this room of people that have been beacons to me. So now all the beacons from you have focused in on this night about me. And I want to tell you, in my life, there have been some amazing things happen. I've been able to go do some stuff I never dreamed about. It all started when I was 14 years old. My parents bought a place on the Brazos River that way, 5 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And I knew when I was 14 years old, I had a passion for fish. I figured out I wanted to make a living messing with fish. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that I did. And now that I'm looking at it in the rearview mirror, I am so glad that it happened the way it did to get to culminate with this night. And there are people in this room that have influenced me, and you may not even know it. You influenced me with your thoughts, your processes, the things you've said, the things you've done. There are Christians here. There are men of God, women that are followers. There are people with corporate humility. Try to say that in the same sentence all day long. It doesn't work. I'm sitting here in a group of people where my friends from academia, my friends from agencies, and people in the private sector, and there's bridges being built between all these people. 30 years ago, that didn't happen. There was too much jealousy among all these folks. Now they're building bridges. And the ones that I want to talk about first are the ones that are gone. My very best friend, Dr. Dave Willis, gone. He built bridges. Harold Arms was one of my first mentors. Ray Mursky, Ray Scott. A lot of guys out there, a lot of people have influenced the way that I think and have helped propel me to get to this apex of a career. And so there's my start, which I have no idea what I'm going to say. Yeah, and Jim Allen, I am a storyteller, and I am going to focus on some stories. I am going to tell some stories, which they only give me 15 minutes. You can't tell any stories in 15 minutes. Tell them the story you told us a few weeks ago about your mom and the picture on the wall. That's a pretty good story. They will never forget you after that. You know what? That's a good story. Hello, Steve Scharf. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to leave a few wet eyes and a whole lot of joy, and I just hope I can get through it. And I'm going to tell some stories. Jeremy Day, what's your experience with fish traps? Once I added another feeder on the MVP, seeing the way more bullhead, they love the MVP. Seeing way more bullheads. Yep. Uh-oh, I just scrolled down too far. So Jeremy is wanting trap. Hey, do it. Run the trap. But you know what? If you're going to trap fish, run it every day. Fred's asking, will the ceremonies be available to stream anywhere? I don't know about that. You know what? I am going to call him tomorrow and see if I could just bring my phone and my tripod. I got a little tripod. And just put my phone on it. Ooh, almost dropped, not my water. I do have water. I will call them tomorrow and see if I can broadcast that Facebook Live and just set it up at the podium, because there's going to be some cool stuff. So I will see how that works. Have no idea. So I'm not going to make any promises. I tell you what I will promise. I'll come on here after I talk to Tom Lang at the Freshwater Fishery Center and tell you what he tells me. And if we can do it, I'll do it. Hell, I may not be able to speak more than 15 minutes with this crusty voice. Happens to me every year. All right, so let's go back to these questions, because that's why you're here. Steve Alexander, how do you manage harvest after introducing new genetics? Here's what that means. You take a pond or a lake. Steve is private waters fishing. He owns that company where they lease fishing rights from landowners. Josh, I may take some Woodford with me. I know they're going to have wine and beer, but maybe I can sneak in a flask. Although that would send my wife in orbit. And I am going to thank my wife, because I know this. When I stand up in front of that crowd and I start thanking people, I won't have time to single out everybody that I want to thank. So I'm going to have to do kind of a collective thank you and just lay out some of the highlights. But one of them is going to be Debbie. And without Debbie in my life, I would not have achieved. I would have been content to live in my little frame house, 1,800 square feet. I would have repaired the hole in the floor at some point. I'd be out of debt. But I wouldn't be here. And she pushes me. I don't like her technique most of the time, but it's work. And she's helped me get here. So I am going to give her a little credit. But, you know, she's got a quote that I can't erase from my mind. She told me a few years ago, she said, Lusk, I'd love to lower my expectations. I just don't know how. I had to let that soak in and absorb it. Elena, I see your question, so I'll get to it in a minute. You know, I will find out if we can broadcast it. If we can broadcast it and it works, if they've got a good enough internet connection out there, because they're kind of out in the country. Let's go back to Steve Alexander. How to manage harvest after introducing new genetics. Well, what he's talking about is taking a lake that was overcrowded with bass of unknown genetics. So you work on the lake, you harvest a bunch of fish, you take a bunch out, and then you want to improve the genetics. So you stock some fish. So how do you manage the harvest? You manage it the same way you manage every other harvest. If you've got great genetics of fish and they're underperforming, out they come. If you will weigh and measure a bunch of fish as you go, the more data you can collect, the better decisions you can make. So that's the way I look at managing genetics. So when you first put them in, you know, and people ask me, okay, I want to improve the genetics. What should I do? Well, you got to get your fishery to where the forage fish have a little bit of an advantage, so that when you stock your bass, for example, your Florida bass, your F1s, or whatever you're going to do, they've got enough of a food chain that they're not behind the 8 ball, where they can at least have a chance to succeed when you stock them. And then they've got to grow at a substantial rate, so you protect them for the first year. So if you put in a bunch of 2-inch bass, so let me give you the thought process there. Stock 1,000 2-inch genetically superior fish per acre. $15.50 a piece, $1,500. So you stock $3,000 worth of bass, let's say, and 90% of them get eaten. That means 300 didn't. And of those 300, half are girls, half are boys. The boys are going to underperform. 30% of the girls stand a chance to perform if they don't get eaten. You know, and so then you give them 18 months to 2 years to begin to get into that slot of 12, 13 inches, 10, 12, 13 inches long. Then you judge their body condition. And if they're not performing, then it doesn't matter how good their genetics are. If you can keep them in there for, some of them in there for 3 years, now they've reproduced. Some of them will reproduce in the second year, depending on the latitude where you live. Michael Eric, Independence, Iowa. All right, let's go back to Elena's comment. My dad and I were thinking about putting rainbow trout in our pond to have some fun this winter. Can you tell us what temperature the water has to be? Yeah, put them in when the temperature's 60 degrees on the way down. You can push it at 65, but Elena, somewhere around Thanksgiving. And I would call Crystal Springs Trout Farm in Ava, Missouri. It's not that far from you guys, and they can help you. Michael Eric, Bob became my mentor 10 or so years ago at my first ever pond management class show, Independence, Iowa. You remember that night? Yeah, I do. I was with Nate Herman. Sure was. I sure do remember that. Yep. I don't remember meeting you. Oh, burn. Yeah, you know what? I remember a lot of people, but I've gotten to know you since then, even though we've met once. Danny Mack, trying to figure out harvesting bluegill big time and which to pursue. Build a 4-foot cube fish trap or learn to throw my 8-foot cast net. I'd look at the fish trap. I think that's going to be a little bit easier on the fish. Be sure the fish trap you make is not abrasive. You can buy some Teflon coated welded wire, and that makes a pretty good trap, or you can buy that. But be sure you know what you're going to do with those fish. Have a plan. Don't just harvest them. Danny Mack, I'm going to tell you, those fish you've got that are that big are worth $4 or $5 a piece, maybe more. And if Scott Thrash has not communicated with you, which, I mean, I connected you guys with emails twice, which I don't know if he's connected. He needs to buy some of those fish, and $4 or $5 a piece, depending on how big they are, is a fair price for that. Plus, that'll help you buy some fish food, or make your own deal. Have him buy you 10 bags of fish food or something. Jeff Wallen, my pond has went through 5 or 6 cycles this year. Right now, clear, 3 feet visibility. Throw a handful of fish food. It's like a fish tank water. It's 65 degrees. Simple. You know what? Keep going. Keep feeding. The more you feed, the more they eat, the more they grow. The more they grow, the better they feel. So feed fish for every meal. Where'd that come from? Ian Swinger. Thanks as always. Hey, yeah. Dude, I'm going to tell you what. Let me tell you what happened to me. About this time last year, I'm 69 years old. I know I don't look it. I know I look like I'm in my early 30s. Well, let's see. Now do I? Without the gray beard? Maybe not. So, maybe I look like I'm 65. I don't care about that. So about this time last year, I was thinking about, it's time to kind of shift gears. Slow down a little bit. Go out in the river. Go fishing some more. Hang out. Have more Woodford. And then that call came in February. Hey, Bob, this is Dr. Billy Higginbotham. Just want to call and let you know that today you were elected in the Texas Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Well, the more I thought, I can't slow down. I got to ramp up. I need to share this stuff. This stuff I've learned, you need to know it. The more you know it, the more you can pay it forward. The more you absorb, the more your sponge can squeeze out on other people. I need to write that down. I don't have time. When y'all write it down and send it to me. Jeremy Day, check the trap. Yeah, check the trap every day. Because the reason is you don't want the fish to get in there and beat themselves up. We don't care if the bullheads get beat up, but trap it every day. You're going to be more successful because here's something people don't think about. When you're trapping fish, they send out a kind of a distress call. They start banging the side. They get frantic, and of course they calm down until something happens to make them get frantic again. But they send a signal which will mitigate your ability to trap more fish. Can you just feed all through winter or when it goes below 50? I would feed till they quit eating. Here's Jim Allen, my mother. I'm not your mother. Well, you're acting like it. I miss my mother. She was pretty cool. I told you the story. One of them. One story. So, you might want to give your voice a rest. I'm going to give my voice a rest. I'm not going to be talking tomorrow or the next day, but I will the next day. They gave me 15 minutes. I don't think it's going to last that long. I think it'll last 30. Maybe an hour. I'm going to, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. But here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to watch the crowd. When they start looking at their watches, start looking away, yawning, I'm done. You know, even a funeral, people think that they need to talk less and bury more. Or I don't go to that many funerals. Steve Sharp, first year with a largemouth bass in the pond, thinking we're going to be in the range of 11 to 12 inches in a couple of weeks based on a few samples we have measured and weighed. I've set a couple of traps and haven't been very successful in catching bluegill. Would you recommend adding forage fish? Smallest bluegill I've been able to locate were 3 to 4 inches if I were to add them in. Okay, Steve, I'm going to tell you this. It does no harm. It does no harm to add more bait fish. But it may not be necessary. That's the catch-22. Your predator fish tell you, based on their relative weights, if they need more food. Or if you need to cull some, or both. So, Steve, if you want to buy some more fish, do it. I don't know that it'll do that. Jeremy Day, no one will do that. No one will do what? I must have said something. I thought I was talking about traps. Okay, John Henry said, livestock effect on ponds. You know, I've been on a whole lot of ranches. And there's a lot of ponds out there designed for livestock water. And livestock need water. But if the pond is designed to be a fishing pond, I'll look at their watch. Oh, I don't have a watch. I got you. If your pond is designed to be for fishing, keep the livestock off. There's a number of ways to do that. You can actually run a pipe through the dam and fence the pond off. And with a pipe, with a kind of a siphon thing going on down there, below the water line, you can go to a trough and put a float like on a toilet. There's floats designed for livestock water. Where the float drops, the valve opens, water siphons into the trough. So you can do that. Or you can fence off all but a corner of a pond. I will write about this one of these days. I've got some pretty good images. Because what happens is cattle will come and tromp down the edges. They'll cause erosion. The pond will silt in faster if they're spending time in it. I've investigated fish kills where I'm convinced that the rancher treated the cattle for flies, and the fly poisoned the fish. So there's a number of reasons to keep livestock out of water. If you have livestock, build a pond for those. If you built a pond that's just for fishing, then manage it for fishing. And now my cursor's disappeared. Oh man, where'd that go? Oh, there it is. Let's go back to some of these questions on this envelope. Mark Hicks, fall and winter prep for fish in our ponds. Harvest feed. Yeah, I kind of tackled that already. So, right now, John Funk showed up. We've been talking about you, dude. You'll have to go back and listen early on. But I'm glad you're here. Cough medicine, raspy voice. You know the deal. Grandkid love. Mark Hicks, fall and winter prep for fish in our ponds. They need to go into the winter in as good a shape as you can get them. Because when they go into the winter time and they're undernourished, they're going to metabolize their flesh. When a fish metabolizes its flesh, it's going to lose weight and have to regain it by eating more to regain the flesh. If they go into the winter with plentiful abdominal fat plus fat, visceral fat plus fat scattered out in their flesh, they're going to metabolize that first and not so much flesh that they won't have to make up. John Funk can say hi from a very dry mid-Michigan. Yep, Mark Dyer, hashtag Palm Off the Magazine. You know what? Let's take a pause for a commercial. Hey, Pond Boss Magazine, woo! $35 a year. Say it with me. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. You know, and readers tell me that every issue they get a nugget. They get something that they can actually use, which that's one of the things that I want to do. Jeremy Day, great article on bass and eating catfish versus bluegill. Can you expand on that article? You know, I'm going to have to look it up, but let me tell you this. Guys, I can remember most ponds that I see, most people that I meet, but I'll be damned if I can remember anything I write about. And I'm just glad that I don't have to, because I can go back and read it. Which magazine are you talking about? Great article on bass and eating catfish versus bluegill. I don't know what article that is. Okay, so here I've got the September-October issue. I'm looking. Here's what happens to me. And this is kind of, I don't know, just unique, I think. I like to call it weird this month. Okay, well, here it is. Tell me what page it's on. Pull it up. Come on. Come on, Jeremy. I'm not going to let you put me in that spot. Tell me what page it's on. I'll look at it. Josh Muskey having trouble with his catch rate, so he decreased his feed at work. Oh, and by the way, Josh, I have to tell you, I got your emails from your nephew. I've been traveling so much that I've not personally answered those, but they will be in Ask the Boss and for the November, December issue. And once I can dig into that, the way I do things, when I get ready to put Pond Boss together, I try to put 4 or 5 days in a row together. Then I go get all that intel and I put it together. I edit all the stories. I write the ones I need to write that complement the other stories. And then I do Ask the Boss. That's where your nephew's questions will come in. And they'll be published in November, December. I put those emails in a Word document. So I've got them. I just haven't got to it yet. But I will answer those emails personally once I write the answers for Ask the Boss. So, holy cow, now something's going on. Okay. Oh, Eric West, page 50. That a boy, Jeremy. You're helping the guy out now. All right, I'll go back into that. Give me a minute. All right. So okay, Josh Muskey decreased his feed, so that works. Okay, page 56. All right, put me on the spot. I'm going to put you back on it with me. Let's see here, 56. Eric West wrote that story. You'd think I know this magazine by now. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm reading. Bear with me. Oh, dang it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. You know, I didn't finish the commercials. I need to do that. I'm not usually this easily distracted. Okay. I remember it now. So what that article talks about is that mouth size typically dictates what a fish will eat, whether it's a bass or a bullhead, a bluegill, a channel cat, whatever. But it's more than that. And what happens is fish get conditioned to that circumstance. It gets conditioned to that food chain in that pond with that water quality, with that habitat. So while gape size is very important, there's times they're a little bit more selective where they'll prefer certain food morsels other than other ones. So like if they get used to eating golden shiners and a big bluegill swims by, they might pass on the bluegill even though there's more shiners. You know, so it's a little bit more than just gape size. Hello, John Harson. Matter of fact, you got a question here somewhere. I'm fixing to attack that one. Yep, better late than never. Hey, Texas Hunter Feeders. I love those guys. Texas Hunter Products. Look them up. They've got hunting products. They've got fish feeding products. They just started a line of dog feeders. So check them out. Go to Texas Hunter Products and look up their website. I love their products. Chris Blood is a very good friend of mine. He'll be there Friday night, by the way, for those of you guys that are coming, and you'll get to spend time with him. But he is now in product development and research and inventing stuff. And they've been working on a line of dog feeders now for quite a while, and he's involved in that. So Texas Hunter, I love their products, but I love their customer service just as much. Prina Mills, makers of Aquamax. Great fish foods. Sometimes their distribution sucks. Kenny Sanderson will tell you that. And they'll tell you that. But you can't beat their products. They're really, really good. BirdDogIt.com. You guys go check that out. Lake Erie Pond Management. I know who that is. That's our good buddy Ron Ardwin. I will be hanging out with him in a couple of weeks. You should see my bluegills tearing the bass throw pellets. Yeah, I bet so. You got some big bluegills, dude. John Funk, I see your question. I'll be right to it. Hang on a minute. I got to look at something here. David Schneiderman, Easy Docks of Texas. Check those guys out. Friend David Schneiderman, go back up in these threads where he's responded after the show. Click on his link, friend him, and then talk to him about docks. The guy's an expert about floating docks, and he's getting to be an expert in pond management. I'm going to run out of cough medicine in a minute. So I want to go back to these questions here. Mark Dyer was asking about nutrient abatement. I wrote it on the back of an envelope. High nitrogen, high phosphorus. As a pond ages, that's inevitable. You're going to get more of a nutrient load. What your role is as a pond manager is to figure out how to abate that. The normal way is to keep the nitrogen and the phosphorus in plankton blooms in the spring and the summer. And then when it rains and you've got a good watershed that's vegetated well, that can filter the water as it comes in, that fresh water comes in and pushes a lot of that nitrogen and phosphorus load, nutrient load downstream into a pasture, or a watershed where it can fertilize something else, or gone down to the neighbor and help the neighbor. So there are other ways, though. There's ways to lock phosphorus. Phoslock is a product. So in today's world, there's some more products out there that we can use to help mitigate and manage and abate nutrient loads. Virgil Meyer wants to know what happens as water cools. Well, as water cools, metabolism rates of the living things change. Fish have prime operating temperatures where they do the best. They like a largemouth bass, it loves 65 to 83. And during that span of time, they're the most active. They're metabolizing rapidly. They're feeding heavily. So when the water temperature begins to fall and the photo period gets shorter, ponds begin to position themselves for wintertime, to be dormant. Now, they don't ever totally stop. Fish still have to eat, even though they don't eat as much in the winter, because their metabolism rate slows down. They can metabolize their fat. So when the temperature begins to drop, now when it gets down 60 and below, trout speed up. Cold water fish get really, really active from 75 down to about 50. When it gets colder than that, that's when things begin to slow down. That was Virgil Meyer's question. Dave Weber, dangers of putting too much fish habitat. I think I've seen too much fish habitat one time in 45 years, and that's because, and Ron Ardwan can tell you about that lake, it's in Mississippi, where they built a dam and left the entire watershed full of standing timber. So the dangers of that, there's several of them. If you've got too much standing timber, for example, it's going to compromise your water quality, especially where the alkalinity is low. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to disperse your fish. Trying to fish a lake that's got 100% coverage of some kind of debris or habitat or whatever, the fish are going to be distributed. And you have to work your butt off to try to figure out where they are if you can navigate through it in anything other than an inner tube. So too much habitat. I'm going to tell you 25 to 30% of a lake's basin should have some types of habitat. And if you've got that, then you got a good situation. Leon Holtzbauer, aeration during fall, yes. Do that till the water temperature hits 55. Once you hit 55, if you've aerated your pond all year long, all summer long, the aeration system has done its job to help keep the water happy. And when you get to 55 degrees, water's affinity for oxygen is high enough, and the metabolism rate and the metabolic rate of your fish has slowed down to the point where they're not consuming so much oxygen. So oxygen is less needed when the water temperature gets cold, unless you're in an area where you're going to ice over for several months at a time. Then consider aeration. You see, somebody made a comment earlier, I think it was Matney, where he's got a windmill aerator to keep a hole open in the pond. If you're going to do that, keep the hole open where it's safe, where people don't fall in, deer don't fall in, and they can't get out. So John Harson, better late than never, yep. So that brings me to the last question. John Harson's adding Japanese trapdoor snails? Seriously? Why? I guess you can add them if you want to eat some snails. But no, in all seriousness, I would avoid exotic species, especially stuff like that. Japanese trapdoor snails are going to outcompete a whole lot of the native snails, which all snails are endemic hosts, primary hosts for a lot of the parasites that infect your fish. So there's several reasons not to add Japanese trapdoor snails. Number one is they're exotic, you don't need them. Number two, they're going to be primary hosts. There's Chris Blood. I thought he might be on here. Chris Blood taught me how to make an old-fashioned, except if I remember right, he used Clyde maize. Well, this is cough syrup. I'd like to tell you that I dissolved some Hall's cough drops in here. I didn't. Elena, don't tell your dad what I'm doing. Jeremy Day. Where I was going with that was how bass will impact the bullheads will eat them. Yes, they'll eat them. Those bass, I'll tell you this, in a lake, so where Jeremy lives, near Wichita, Kansas, in an old gravel pit that he's renovated, those bass will absolutely eat those bullheads. Now, they may not prefer them early on, but they will eat those bullheads. Now, what's going to happen, bullheads grow so fast that they typically outgrow the gate size of a bass, because bass are feeding on other more convenient fish. But when those bullheads begin to reproduce and those little black clouds of tiny little fish are moving through the pond, they will annihilate them. And you know what, Chris? I cannot wait to see you and Mary. This is going to be really, really fun. Mark Dyers, the higher pondology at the end of the month of Florida, it is not a full roster, which we had 8 people sign up. 3 of them called me and said they're not coming. So we have 5 people. I've got room for about 5 more. So Drew Hay called. He's going to be receiving an award, so he and his guy's not coming. Then Scott Thrash called. He's not coming. Sarah Parvin wants to wait till the springtime. She's going to get a wisdom tooth taken out, which I don't think I'd want to be hanging out with her with her wisdom tooth out. So yes, we have more room. So you know what? Let's take a minute and talk about that. The Institute of Higher Pondology is $1,500, and I promise you it's worth it. It's worth it because of the content. It's worth it because of the venue. It's worth it because of the camaraderie. It's worth it because of the knowledge you're going to take home. You will go home with more common sense knowledge. You're going to have a lot of palm to forehead moments. So I'd really like to get 3 more people, up to 5 more people. And that's going to be October 24, 25, 26, St. Joe, Texas at West Haven Ranch. Bobby and Jacob West are our hosts. Fantastic people. We're going to be electrofishing, tagging fish, mark recapture. We're going to be learning how to do some really, I'm going to take it, since we've got several people in the pond management business coming, we're We're going to take a deeper dive into some of the finer aspects of managing lakes and ponds and managing fish, managing water and aquatic plants. And I've got a couple of guests coming, a couple of special guests that are going to be very, very entertaining, and you'll be glad you're there. So I'm going to make you this promise. It'll be great. It's going to cost you $1,500 all in, food, housing, curriculum, a shirt, the whole bit. Kevin says, I get ice. That's why I run it all year round. I get that. One thing, Kevin, you know what? Let me go to Mark's here. Will we cover any of the most common parasitic identifications? Yeah, we'll cover some of that. I don't know if there's a good online or a book source for that. I don't know, because that's typically pathology stuff. But, you know, there used to be Stuttgart, Arkansas, the Southern Region Aquaculture Center, Southern Regional Aqua, SRAC, used to publish some documents for that. I don't know if they lost their funding or what. I haven't paid much attention. I mean, I know what I know and I share that. So I don't know. Is the higher pondology at the end? Yeah, okay, we got that. All right. So Ron Ardoin said, do you think some bass are genetically built to be more accurate strikers than others, which can affect their growth rate? I think they're, let me answer that. I think they're genetically built for potential. I don't think I've ever said that. When y'all write that down and send it back to me. I think they're genetically built for potential. I think the nature of that fish determines whether they're accurate strikers, aggressive strikers. And I think that from what I've seen over 45 years of doing this, anecdotally, just by studying it every day, well, almost every day. I don't want to be like Tim Waltz and be a knucklehead. I don't study them every day, but almost every day. Yeah, I said that, knucklehead. I don't want to be a knucklehead. I didn't lie. I think genetics plays a role, but I think temperament plays a bigger role. I think native strains of largemouth bass, temperament, is what determines whether they're going to get to be 8 to 10 pounds. Same with Floridas. That will determine whether they get to be 14 or 15 or 16 pounds. So I think it's more temperament, but genetics play a role. That's what I'm going to tell you. Jeremy Day, cormorants versus geese, which is worse? I was done fighting lazy. Okay, well, here's the difference. Cormorants eat your fish, and they can decimate a fishery. You know, they're little gangsters. They hit, they eat, then they leave. And they take your fish with them and digest them. They leave parasites behind from the fish they ate upstream from you or north of you as they move south. The geese, they affect your water quality. Cormorants affect your fishery. All right, Kevin, I tackled that. Let me see here. So I think we're about to get to the end of the line here. Yeah, Mark Dyer, I'm really excited that you're coming, buddy. I can't wait to meet you in person. If you guys want to meet Mark Dyer, you need to get your asses to the Institute of Higher Pondology. Email me at boblusk@outlook.com, and I'll send you some intel on that. And Kevin, I get ice. That's why. Okay. I do know. I do want to attack that just for a minute. Running an aeration system all year. Here's the issue with that. When you get ice, believe it or not, it actually acts as an insulator. It keeps that water under the ice from getting warm. Get cold. So under the ice, if you've got a layer of ice, down at the bottom, the water temperature is going to be 40 degrees. And that's a good thermal sanctuary for fish. The problem is if it's under the ice too long and you've got plants and fish mass that are consuming oxygen, you can run out of oxygen. and have a thing called winter kill, which is common in northern tier ponds. But here's the thing about running an aeration system all year long is if your diffuser is in the deepest part of the pond, you're gonna lose your thermal layer of protection at the bottom of the pond in the wintertime. So if you're moving water vertically up through the water column, then what's going to happen is your water temperature is going to drop. And if it gets down to 32.2 degrees on the bottom, that's hard on your fish. It's stressful. So if you do want to aerate a northern pond all year long, I think I'd move my diffuser up in the water maybe 5 feet deep and allow the rest of the water the opportunity to have a thermal refuge. That's a big deal. And Kevin said that he had a winter kill happen, and that's why you're aerating. I get that. You know, I think one of the goals is to aerate through the spring and summer months to cleanse the water enough so that you minimize your risk for winter kill going into the winter. You know, but I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it. Just, it's kind of a balancing act. It's kind of a seesaw thing. So there you go. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up right here. Oh man, I got a crack in my screen. Where'd that come from? I'll have to buy another damn laptop before long. So hey, listen, I really appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Mark and I are a pretty hip cat. I'd want to meet me. Yeah, well, we might get Sarah on I'm gonna call her. I called her last week. Got one in my butt. What, a cormorant? I'm visualizing that. I don't like it. Well, Mark, I know you're a hip cat. Tells me when you grew up, same time I did. So, hey, folks, I'm really glad you guys joined me tonight. And I think I'll be home next Tuesday, and we will have, oh, you got a crack. Oh, John, you know, you were never at a loss. You're always right there on the crack of the edge. So, Chris Blood, thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Can't wait to hang out with you guys. It's going to be a good evening Friday, and I'll tell you guys about some of it next Tuesday night, which I'll probably be right here. I've traveled a lot this summer. I'm kind of tired of it, although it's been a great time. And I'm going to wrap it up right here. So until next Tuesday, and I will post something on this Pond Boss Facebook page tomorrow after I talk to the guys at the Texas Freshwater Fishery Center to see if we can broadcast it on, just go live on Facebook and let you guys see what it's about. So we'll see how that works. So between now and then, appreciate you guys joining in with me. Look on the Facebook page tomorrow, sometime after 12, and I will post that. And until next Tuesday, adios for now.